Happy Mother's Day. We're in the book of James, and let me note first. I learned something today. One, that I brought the sunshine, and I think, according to Peter, that makes me a goddess. All right, he starts with heresy. Okay, we'll get going. I also want to welcome my mother showed up today, so that's my mom over there. I was a little surprised at that, and that's obviously, you guys all know, that puts a lot of pressure on. And if you really like what I say, please go thank her. If you don't, my dad's also here, and it's probably his fault. Okay. We've been in the book of James. Let's see. But we've been here for this is the fourth week in the first chapter of James. I know I think the plan, we're going to finish this up somewhere around June of next year. We'll get through the rest of the book. But because James is kind of a tough book, as I think most of us know. He packs a lot into pretty much every verse. Most of us know verses from James, and it's like, okay, I don't think I want to remember that one. And so I'm going to go back through the last few weeks, try to pull this together a little bit as we finish. Today is the last day in James. So we started in the first week in the first 4 verses, and it says, "You will have trials." Right? It says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." I do want to call this out. I think we all understand this, but I want to make sure. There's lots, especially in the New Testament, where there's masculine words like brothers, man. Generally, these are kind of universal intention. So brothers and sisters, or people, or things like that. A lot of translations will change these two, but I just want to call that out. I'm not going to correct or change the words, but keep in mind we're talking to everybody here. But count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. You know, it's a when, not an if question. There will be trials. Life is hard. That's just the way it is. Okay? And these things are tests of faith. And that doesn't mean it's deciding whether or not you have faith. It's more like a time trial. Right? It's you run. You have to strive. It's a challenge, that kind of a test. Okay, it's a challenge to your faith, and we all know this. We've had hard times in our lives, and it's one of the first things that get challenged is like, oh God, really, God, okay. And it produces steadfastness. At least in this translation, that's the word. It's steadfastness. That's endurance. And keep that in mind. Steadfastness, the noun, is a little different than the verb. Perseverance produces endurance. Does that make sense? So this is endurance. It produces endurance. You go through trials. It tests your faith. Life will be hard. What's the joy? What comes out of that? More endurance for more trials. And then we moved into the second week. Second week, we did the next 4 verses, 5 through 8, and we found out that you need wisdom. If any of you lacks wisdom, please ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. Okay, wisdom. And again, this is a concept that sometimes we get confused. It's not, wisdom isn't intelligence. Wisdom isn't even knowledge. Wisdom is discernment. Wisdom is judgment. It's choice making. Right? There's ignorant, wise people who haven't been educated, but they're wise. They make good choices. Okay? And so it says, if you lack wisdom, ask God, and he gives generously. Right? It's free, but it's not unconditional. Anybody can have it, but you have to ask, and you have to submit to the giver of wisdom. If you don't submit to the giver of wisdom, you don't get it. You have to recognize where wisdom comes from. Right? You have to recognize that God is the giver of wisdom. You have to recognize that that's where it is coming from, which reminds me of I think this is my favorite proverb. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. The first time I read that, I'm like, is that a joke? Like, I don't have it. I'm trying to get it. But that is the catch-22 of wisdom. The catch-22 of wisdom is that you need the judgment to understand who gives wisdom in order to get it. You need wisdom in order to get wisdom. If you are foolish and think you can get it on your own, you will never get it. So we move into the third week. And third week, we did verses 12 through 18. Notice, Peter exercised wisdom, discernment, judgment. He skipped some verses. And we went right into 12 through 18. If you're really interested in figuring out what he skipped, just look it up. It says, you will be tempted. Everybody is tempted. Temptation in itself is not a bad thing. Okay? But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. This is a tricky one. Right? Desires are God-given. Right? A lot of times we blame the desire. We blame the desire. Man, but I want that. Well, the desire came from God, but so does the fulfillment of desires. And this is where the temptation comes in. The temptation comes in when, instead of looking to the fulfiller of desires, we look to ourselves. We do not, life is hard. We do not persevere in the trial. We are tempted to fulfill our own desires. Right? We do not exercise wisdom and patience. And the cycle continues. The cycle continues because we need to remain steadfast and wait on the Lord. And that's what's going on in James. Repetition, over and over again of the same thing. So each one of these sections seems completely different, but he's telling the same story over and over again. He's saying the same thing. You will have trials. It's going to be tough. Be wise. There's truth. Hold on to that truth. Hold on to that wisdom. You need it. Okay? You're going to be tempted. Hold on. Life's going to be tough. He's saying the same thing over and over again. I was telling my wife, it reminds me a lot of when we have our kids in the car, because I think as parents nowadays, you spend about 40% of parenting just driving them somewhere. And so it's like, oh man, I got 10 minutes. I got about 2 years of lessons I need to drop on them right now before they get into first period. And then they're like, well, and it's just random. It's like, boom, I'm just going to drop it on you. And I can just see them just going, oh, here we go. But that's what James is doing. He's like, all right, I got a lot to drop on you. I'm going to drop it on you. And that is James 1. And that's what brings us to what we're going to talk about today. The last verses of James, we're wrapping up chapter 1, and I'm calling this the implanted word. In the translation that I'm using, that is the phrase. I love this phrase. I don't think I've ever really noticed it before, but the implanted word, the word of God implanted in our lives. There's a challenge, though, because not only are we talking in James, but this is a special day. This is Mother's Day. And I'm like, God, really? You're going to give me James and Mother's Day on the same day? I'm not sure how to do this. And so I was praying about it, and I needed to come up with a title for my sermon. So it is Mother's Day. And so I thought, okay, I think I can do this. So this is a Mother's Day message. James 1, calm down, clean your room, watch your mouth. All right? Believe it or not, this does tie in. All right? Calm down, clean your room, watch your mouth. This is what James is talking about today. All right. So I was praying, and I'm thinking, okay, God, give me I can go through all the verses, which I'm going to, and I can talk about different ideas, and each one seems to have its own idea. But what I need from you, I don't want to ignore that it's Mother's Day. I need you to give me a word. What is a word that can tie James to mothers? How do I get this together? And God is good. He gave me a word. Nagging. All right. We are driving together, so I'm going to salvage this. Nagging gets a bad rap. Okay? All it really is directives, it's repetitions, it's lessons. It's stand up straight, clean your room, watch your mouth. Right? It's did you wash your hands? Get your elbows off the table. Right? Did you brush your teeth? Okay? But it's not nagging unless you've had to say it over and over and over again. Right? And so I didn't like this word. Sorry, God. I was like, I can't get through a sermon on Mother's Day and say the word nagging over and over again. I will walk home. And so I wasn't going to do that. So I was like, okay, what's a better word? And I couldn't find one. So I made one up. We're going to call them vaccinations. That is what's going on. We're trying to inject truth. We're injecting facts into people. Okay? Nagging is not nagging, it's vaccination. It's internal. It needs to get inside of you. It is a protection from the world. It is, eat your vegetables. This is how you live a healthy life. Clean your room, get your life in order. But the purpose is not just for you. The purpose is for the benefit of the world, just like a vaccination. The incentive is it's going to protect you. The purpose of a vaccination is to protect the world, is to benefit the world. That is what vaccinations are for, and vaccinations are the same thing. I didn't ask you to stand up straight because I want good posture. I want you to carry yourself well in the world. I didn't ask you to clean your room because I need a housekeeper. It's because you're going to have to balance your checkbook, and you're going to have order in your life, and you're going to have to keep track of your schedule. You need to learn how to order your life. Because you'll just be a tornado in the world if you don't. It's vaccinations. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go through each one of these verses. I wish I could, I know it's a sensitive thing to say nowadays, I wish I was a woman. Because I think this would come better if I was a female up here talking, because I'm going to speak a little bit like a mother as I go through this, because it is Mother's Day. But what we're going to go through is the vaccination FAQs, the frequently asked questions. You get this every time you go to a doctor, and they're like, all right, here's some FAQs for your next appointment. So vaccination fact number 1 is, what should I do before my appointment? How do I prepare for my vaccination? First verse, 19. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. And there's the title, Calm Down. Calm down. Hey, this is not our inclination. This is not how we approach things when people give us instruction, especially if it's repetitive instruction. Okay? Because even when we pat ourselves on the back, I should say that when I pat myself on the back, what really is happening is I start hearing it and I'm angry. And I'm like, I'm going to say something. And I'm a really good person, so I shut it down and I try to listen. Except that's still not what this says. Because I was still quick to anger, and I was still quick to speak, and I was slow to hear. I was the actual opposite of what that. Even when I'm patting myself on the back, I'm not doing this. Because in order to do this, I need to reflect a heart attitude of respect and a desire to learn. I have to enter in humbly. If I don't have a heart attitude of respect, I will never be quick to hear. I will never be slow to anger. If I don't have humility, I won't have the respect to wait to listen and let it implant. Okay? It says, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Man, that is a slap across the face, because I'm pretty sure my anger is righteous almost all the time. But it does not produce the righteousness of God. And this is tough, because you have to ask yourself, why are you angry? What is triggering so hard when someone tells you to do something that you know you should do, that you don't do? What is the anger coming from? Because the real question is it righteous anger or is it self-righteous anger? This is really just a wound of pride. I don't want to hear this. I know I stink at this. So he says, therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness. The translation, I mean, again, James is tough because he packs so much into every verse. He says, therefore, anytime you see the therefore, you look what it's there for. And it goes back to, for anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away filthiness and rampant wickedness. Clean your room. Right? Pick it up and find whatever it is that's making that smell and get rid of it. I mean, maybe not all of you have heard that, but I've definitely heard that. I think I just heard that this morning. Because it's not enough just to get rid of the filthiness. It's not enough just to clean it up and dust and vacuum. It is what is making that smell. And there's a half-eaten sandwich that fell off the nightstand. It's underneath the bed, and it's growing. It is rampant wickedness. It is out of control. It has a life of its own. Right? Put your life in order and identify and remove the sin that is growing within you. It is not enough to clean the outside or to clean the behavior, but you have to find whatever it is that is underneath that's actually producing that smell. You can put on deodorant if you want, but it's the cause of the smell that has to be addressed. And receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save your souls. Man, that's like something, I think I need that tattooed or written on the inside of my windshield when I'm driving, so I see that all the time. Receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save your soul. And this is what moms tell you. Listen. I need you to get this. I need this to sink in. I'm not saying this for my own good. How many people have heard that? Yeah. I'm not saying this for my own good. I need you to hear this. Clean your room. I'm like, okay, Mom. Because it's not about the clean room. It's not about that. It's that if you don't clean your room and you don't stand up straight and you don't eat your vegetables or brush your teeth or whatever, there are lifelong consequences for not getting this. If you don't get this, it's going to keep coming back on you. It has to sink in. So I'm going to keep saying it. Because it's not just for you. Those same consequences are going to get visited on your children. They're going to get visited on your spouse. They're going to get visited on your brother and sister. They're going to get visited on your neighbors. They're going to visit on your community. It is not about the clean room. All right. Vaccination fact number 2. Verse 22, but be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourself. Because if it's not about you, you got to ask yourself some questions. And I'm not going to dig into this verse too much because somebody has the blessing of getting faith without works is dead later, and I don't have to touch that one. But I'll just go through this because this is tough. But be a doer of the word and not hearer only, deceiving yourself. Okay? Doer, not hearer, deceiving. And you have to ask yourself, are you a believer? And most of us would probably say yes. I'm not sure I'm a believer. So then ask yourself, are you a doer? Because the answer can't diverge here. The answer to enter those two has to be yes. If the answer to either of those is no, then the answer to both of those is no. You can't have it both ways. You're either a believer and a doer or not. It's either implanted or it's not. So don't deceive yourself. And like I said, I'm going to leave the rest of it to somebody else. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man who looks intently in the natural face in the mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. This is one of those these verses that I don't think I ever really understood this verse. I always thought, like, what kind of an idiot looks at himself and then doesn't remember what he looks like? That's just, I don't get this. And I'm thinking, this is written like 2,000 years ago. They didn't even have clear mirrors. I mean, it's like, I don't get this verse at all. It's like, well, I can't remember this like cloudy vision of myself. God's good though, so I now have to preach on it. He's like, I've been trying to get you to understand this for 50 years, so I'm going to make you preach on it. Mom says you got to know who you are. Mom says, I know you. You don't know you. I know who you are. And they say it over and over again to you. This is who you are. You're a good person. You're smart. And it's like, the minute you leave my house, you forget. And the minute you walk out the door, you start hearing what everybody else is saying, and you believe that more than what I'm telling you. And you need to remember who you are. Know who you are. So who are you? What does the mirror say? Well, it says what God says you are. You're a child of God. You look in the mirror, this is what you have to see. This is the truth, and this is what you have to leave the mirror remembering and knowing. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. And if you are a child of God, you are an heir. And if children, then heirs, heirs to God, and fellow heirs with Christ, because he is the king, and the child of a king is an heir to the throne. And if you are an heir to the throne, then you are an ambassador. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, God making his appeal through us. You are to go out in the world as my son and my daughter and the heir, and you are to represent me in the world because you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to the Father who is in heaven. That is who you are. Do not forget who you are. You're a child of God. You're an heir. You're an ambassador. You're the light of the world. You represent me when you leave this house. You represent your whole family. Your choices are not your own. The consequences of your choices are not just on you. So stand up straight and clean your room and represent me in the world. Vaccination fact number 3. How do I know I'm inoculated? Actually, I think that's still 2. Sorry. But the one who looks into the perfect law. This one's really good. The one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being not a hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. Man, a law of liberty, and you got to persevere the law of liberty. You have to persevere freedom. What does that mean? Because the point of all this everything that I do for you, every vaccination that I've tried to give you, every sacrifice that I've made is for you to leave. Everything is for you to leave. And you may think that life is hard living under this roof with my rules and expectations, with my reminders. But life is way, way harder in freedom. And you won't know that till you have it. And the minute you walk out this door, if you do not remember who you are, if these lessons do not sink in, if the word is not implanted, you're going to be lost in the law of liberty. So persevere. If it sinks in, though, there's a blessing. It will go well if you are steadfast when the trials come and you exercise the wisdom that I've tried to give you. You might withstand the temptation. Now, number 3. Vaccination fact number 3. Do all vaccinations work? The answer is no. No, they don't. Not all vaccinations. Some of them just don't take. Some of them are false vaccinations. They just don't work. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, that's a tough standard. Like, I thought it was if anyone thinks he's religious and does not pray. Nope, does not bridle his tongue. So watch your mouth. So you need to understand a couple words here. Bridle. This is using bridle as a verb. Most of us know the term bridle for a horse. Put it on a horse to control them. To bridle your tongue is to control. It's to hold back. It's to restrain. It's to curb. It's to direct. If you're not intentional with your words, if you're not directing your words, if you're not in control of your words, your religion is worthless. Well, what's a religion? Religion is a system of faith and belief. It's not the faith itself. It's not the worship. It's the system. It's the discipline. It's what you put together to keep you on the path. Well, if it doesn't result in a controlling of your words, then that system is worthless. Because you're deceiving your heart. Because language is for the hearer. It's not for the speaker. I know what's in my head. The purpose of words is so you can understand what's in my head. Believe it or not, language is not invented for Twitter, so you can just bloviate into the world. Right? Language is to communicate to one another. And the worse my use of language is judged by how well or how poorly someone understands what I'm saying. So if you guys walk out of this room today like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about, then I did not do a very good job. It's not on you, it's on me. My job is to get my thoughts and beliefs and understandings out so you understand them. That's what words are for. Because it's not about you. None of it is about you. It's about others. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. So when you go out and you leave this house, you go out with the benefit of having a loving, caring mother. And who do you need to look for? Those who don't have that. People who have either don't have or have lost their support, their forgiveness, the love in their life, acceptance, provision, protection, the things that you get from a parent, the things that you get from God the Father. That is what they're missing. They do not have a parent. And don't forget where you come from. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay? When you leave this house, you take this house with you. You don't meld into somebody else's. You represent me, you represent your family. Go into the world. Calm down, clean your room, watch your mouth. And before I wrap it up, I got one thing I want you to watch on Mother's Day. Do I just hit next?
Hit it twice. One more time.
Oh, let's try again. There we go.
Your mom's not just going to tell you once. She's going to tell you over and over and over again. She's going to reinforce the message. Because sometimes the first time you won't understand it. The second time you won't really want to listen to it. The third time you might be annoyed by it. The fourth time you might just think your mom's trying to ruin your life. The fifth time when you see the change, when you see who you're becoming. The fifth time, maybe it's the sixth time, maybe it's the 20th time, whatever it is. Your mom's going to keep on going until you see it. And when you see it, you'll realize why she did it. You'll realize why she was reinforcing it. You'll realize why she was reminding you. You'll realize why she was showing up when you weren't asking for it. You'll realize everything that she was doing the whole time. Because when you see it, all those times she did it will add up to that one moment. And you'll prove it to yourself. And you'll look back on your life. And you'll thank your mom for every time she knocked on that door. Every time she reinforced it. Every time she reminded you who you were.
Every time she reminds you who you were. Because it's not nagging, it's a vaccination. Life is hard. You need wisdom. You will be tempted. So remember my words. Let them sink in. And then go and represent me well. Because it's not about you.